Okay, we're recording.
All right, start it off.
We got Tony Geraci, broker owner, Century 21 HomeStar with us. How you doing, Tony?
Good. Hello, everyone.
And I'm Mike Ferrante, also from Century 21 HomeStar and the 21 Mike team. We're doing our weekly training video live. I've posted our YouTube channel in the remarks there in the chat box in case anyone wants to catch up on past training sessions. Each week we try to really dive deep on a specific topic, and this week it is all about writing an offer that gets accepted. So Tony, I mean, we all know it's no secret that right now one of the biggest challenges we're facing if we're working buyers is how competitive the market is because there's a lack of inventory. Are you having a lot of agents talking to you about this, how frustrated they're getting that they can't seem to get their buyers a house?
Oh, definitely. I think that it's becoming an issue in many markets, and this topic is very important of ideas and things because this is when, realtors, we earn our money in many different ways, but this is where we really help our buyers out, especially when it's a seller's market and helping them get their house.
Yeah. So if you're listing a house, it's pretty easy because people are fighting over it. I mean, I say easy in quotes because, while it's a simple business that we're in, it's not easy. That's one of my favorite sayings. It's simple, but not easy. But certainly on the side of the buyers, it's really difficult right now. So what I wanted to do today is throw out some ideas, and some of these ideas are not mine, but from my coach. I do training too, and I do training with the Tom Ferry system, and I love it. So I think the more training you can get, the better. These are just some of these ideas are brainstorm ideas. I'm not necessarily saying that you should go out and do all of these. My point with mentioning these and why my coach mentioned them to me was that if we're not at least having these conversations with our buyers, someone else might. So picture you're working a buyer who's gotten beat out of 3 homes, and next thing you know, they start talking with another agent. And the other agent says, well, hey, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Suddenly, the buyer may turn on you. They're frustrated. They may say, well, gosh, Mike never mentioned that I could do that, never mentioned that that was an option. And so it could tear down the loyalty that you have with the buyer. So some of the things I'm going to throw out here today, you may say, oh, Mike, I would never do that. And maybe you wouldn't. But remember, it's up to our clients. We should know about all the options that are available and be able to talk about them intelligently. So I guess the first thing to talk about is when you're writing an offer, I mean, we all know what our contracts look like. And I really think we should study our contracts because the way you fill in a contract can directly affect how a seller looks at the offer. So for example, something as simple as a poorly filled out purchase agreement could affect what buyers or what the sellers think about your offer. If they feel like, oh gosh, this agent doesn't really seem to know what they're doing. They didn't fill out the down payment. They didn't talk about title. They didn't check any of the inspection boxes. Something as simple as that can really affect how a seller perceives an offer. I have an investor seller who, when he sees an offer that's poorly filled out, his first reaction is, oh, I don't want to work with this agent. So if he's got 2 offers that are very similar, which way do you think he's gonna lean? Right?
Oh, definitely. I think, yeah, you got to make it look nice. They're looking at a lot of words and a lot of pages. And if their listing agent didn't introduce them to what they might see, this might be the first time they've seen a purchase agreement if you're the first offer. And you just like anything, they're buying that purchase agreement. You got to make it look nice.
Yeah. What do you think about a handwritten purchase agreement versus one that's typed out in Dotloop or DocuSign, Tony? Do you think
Oh,
there's a difference?
definitely. No, I always feel that a typed in contract is always preferable, or
Yeah.
definitely if you have to hand write because you're doing something fast or whatever, you have a client that just doesn't want it, make sure you write it very cleanly, so it's very easy for them to see and read and see the bullet points on that.
That's a great point. How many contracts have you seen where you literally are sitting there with the paper going, what does this say? I know you guys see that all the time where you're struggling to interpret what it says.
Right, but the good news is, the technology finally caught up after all of these years. Not to bring up the past of having faxes of that, but make sure it's clean. If you're scanning it, make sure it's a clean scan without any lines in it,
Yeah.
things on the side. Make sure it's in order. Make sure you have an order to it too.
So I know how old you are, Tony, but I'm going to put you on the spot here. Did you have one of those faxes with the rolly paper?
Oh yeah, no, this is how I used to write offers. Not to get off topic, is just the fax would come in. It would be on that shiny paper. I would take the paper, and it would be really long,
Right.
because it wouldn't cut up. I would cut it, and then I would roll it so it would be flat. Then I would take it to the copy machine, then copy it, because you couldn't write on that shiny paper. Then I would drive it to my seller's house. Or buyer's house, or having them come to the office and have to write it. And then if it faxed again, then he had to do it again. So,
Yeah.
yes.
And you bring up a great point about the time that it takes to deliver the offer. So another tip that I have about getting the offer accepted is how quickly can you get it signed and delivered? Another reason to use electronic signatures, not to have to meet people to sign in person. And then furthermore, to deliver the offer in a timely fashion to the listing agent. I can't tell you how many times, we do a lot of listings, and I can't tell you how many times I have an agent say, oh, I just wrote an offer. I just got back to my office. I was going to fax it over, not fax, but email it over to you. And I say, oh gosh, I wish I had known the seller just accepted an offer this morning. And I know that's a frustrating thing to hear as a buyer's agent, but keep in mind, there's a couple of rules, at least on our MLS. Once a status changes, they have 48 business hours to update that. So the clock could already be ticking, or may have already passed that window to submit an offer, and you may not know it. So two things: timely delivery of offers, and then secondly, communication with the listing agent. Making sure that they know an offer is coming, because that may affect the seller's decision to sign something today. So if I say, hey, Tony, I just want to let you know I'm going to be sending an offer over to you this evening, you may talk to your seller and say, what?
Yeah, there's might be an offer coming in ASAP.
Yeah. Now, we don't always wait. If I stopped every time I heard someone say there might be an offer coming, but, if you're solid and confident about it, I'm meeting them. Like when I get this message, I'm meeting them at 3:00 to sign an offer to send to you, and I get that message. That's a lot more powerful than, hey, I might be sending you an offer tonight. So
right, you really should communicate with the seller or the seller's agent, listing agent, after your showing. You could send a text, you could call. They're interested, not interested. Just keep them on the hook. If you think they're looking at other properties, you could be. I've seen this happen. You're showing 5 properties. So first, second day it's on the market. You show that one first. By the time you end up seeing all the other properties, another person came in and wrote an offer already.
Yeah.
So you should really communicate with that list. If there's any type of interest whatsoever, communicate with that listing agent ASAP.
Right. So I'm going to get back to the purchase agreement and just kind of go through some basics. I was going to pull one up, but I think rather than do that, we all know our purchase agreements well enough to know what's on there. So I'm going to run through a bunch of things really quickly here. The number one thing that sellers are looking at is price. We all know that. Other terms can be important, and all things being equal, if someone else has a better term and the price is equal, they may lean toward another offer, and we'll get to those things. But I think it's really important to talk price with your buyers, especially in a competitive market. Sometimes it takes them getting beaten out of a house or two before they realize you're not just telling them to bid high because you want to sell a house. But the number one thing we start with is price. Make sure you're demonstrating the value of the house that they're writing an offer on. Show them that homes in this area are selling in a week or less, that they're selling for 99% of list price, or in many cases over list price. And educate them. If they say, well, we want to come in, it's listed for 300,000, we want to come in at 270 because that's 90% of list price. Educate them on the actual value of the house. What if the house is worth every penny of 300? Maybe instead of coming in at 270, they need to come in at 301. Don't be afraid to write offers over list price. We're seeing it a lot now. Offers over list price, multiple offers over list price. So besides the price, what about the form of purchase? So cash versus financing. Tony, if you had 2 offers that were exactly the same, which one would you rather have?
Oh, definitely cash, and as long as it's they're with the offer showing the verification of cash too. So we're not hoping or praying. It's not not to add to that is that sometimes people think cash is retirement planning, right? Retirement funds, and then they all of a sudden they don't realize they didn't talk to their financial planner. They find out that if they take their money out of they're going to take taxes on that and take a loss. And then they, oh, I don't really have the cash. So you never know until
Yeah.
you talk to the buyer. If you're listening, you talk to the buyer agent, where's this cash? If they don't show you where, verification of deposit.
Proof of funds, verification of funds, and if you're financing, a nice, strong pre-approval letter, one that has been properly done, not just, hey, we talked to the buyer. It should list out what the remaining conditions are. You are pre-approved, Tony, subject to the appraisal of your property and final underwriting of the information that you've already provided us. The more solid that pre-approval looks, the more solid footing your buyer is on. The next thing is pertaining to, so we have cash. How about higher earnest money? Two offers very close to the same or the same. If one's putting up more earnest money, what does that make you think as a seller?
Oh, definitely. That's definitely a good point. It just shows that you have more skin in the game, that you're serious about it, and than someone else.
Now I'm going to throw out a controversial item here, and for some of these items, again, I'm not saying to do these things. I'm just saying that if you don't at least have knowledge about them and be able to discuss them and tell your buyer it's a possibility, that you may be missing out. So what if you made your earnest money non-refundable and put that in an offer? I mean, I know it's a little controversial, but this is something my coach and I talked about. If that buyer is that comfortable with the house and made the earnest money non-refundable, that could be powerful. Now you could make it non-refundable subject to home inspection. Okay, that would be one way to do it. But we're looking for these little ways to make our offer stand out over others. I'll tell you, that would catch my eye. I see the smoke coming out of your ears a little bit, Tony. I know that's again, controversial, but a possibility. You could do that, right?
You definitely can. Yeah, the broker hat on me right now. It's like, whoa, hey, no, but that's okay. Yeah, you can do non-refundable because again, if it's something that if you're a buyer, I explain if you want this house, and you're going to get the financing, you have a good pre-approval, you're going to do that outside of inspection, outside of something that's not of your control, you'll still get the house. Non-refundable means if you back out, it's your choice. So there's little risk with the non-refundable unless you don't have the good inspection or some other things that you got to make sure you're completely happy about.
Yeah. Now the second one is, what about waiving a financing contingency? Okay, or the appraisal. So we know that houses are getting bid up, and one of the things I'm seeing as a listing agent is buyers coming in, going over list price and saying, we're okay if it doesn't quite appraise for the price that we've offered. I just had a house in Solon that went for just over list price. The appraisal came in $15,000 low. We disagreed with it. We think the value was there. And the buyer said, that's okay. I still want the house. So if you're a buyer and you know that you're comfortable with the price, and if for some reason that appraiser doesn't agree with the value, what if you wrote in your offer, not subject to appraisal? That basically tells the seller that even if the appraisal comes in a little low, don't worry, I'm still going to buy your house. What do you think about that one, Tony?
Oh, definitely. If you definitely have that conversation and you're comfortable with your loan officer, if you're getting a lender, you're getting a loan or mortgage, then that's definitely fine. But always said that as a buyer's agent, make sure you have a good lender, a loan officer that's at your beck and call, because things might be happening right where you need them to jump in if this is possible.
So Tony, if I don't have a lender I'm confident in, do you have any recommendations for me?
Of course, we always have a few good ones.
Excellent. So I also mentioned waiving financing contingency. To me, this one is more risky. But again, if you know you're solid, if you've got a 800 credit score, 20% down, and you know your loan originator has done a fabulous job approving you, it's an option. okay? Especially if you know you could buy the house with cash as well. Again, I'm not recommending you do this with everyone. I'm just saying that if you're struggling and you have a solid buyer, it's a conversation to have. Hey, how confident are you in your financing? Would you be willing for me to cross out financing as a contingency in your offer? It's
Okay.
just a possibility.
Can I jump in about value? Because I don't know if you were going to hit that topic, was that sometimes when you go over asking, your buyers ask you, they're really stuck on value at that second. And I always explain to agents, you have to explain to your buyer that the value of a house changes with every sale in the area, comparable sale. So you buy the house today, closes today, a week from now, another house closes $5,000 more than yours. Technically your value could have gone up 5,000. If one sells for 5,000 less, your value might have gone down 5,000. It's not an exact science that is going to be for a long time. So if you explain that to them, and then of course, if you live in the house a long time, we don't know what the value is going to be 5 years, 10 years from now. So what you buy today is really what you're comfortable in paying.
Yeah. On that same note, when I talk to buyers and sellers alike, when we talk about value, there is no true one value of a house. I think the whole concept of an appraisal is a little bit of a myth. It's one person's opinion of value on that day. They tell you an appraisal is good for one day. And what I mean by there's no one value is that when we get multiple offers on a property, if I get, just recently I got 8 offers on a listing. Were all 8 offers exactly the same? Of course not. They range, they differed by over 15%. I mean, literally, there was about a $15,000 to $20,000 difference between the top offer and the bottom offer. The value differs by how well it suits the needs of that particular buyer. If it's a perfect fit and I only have to change a couple things to make it work for my family, it may be worth more. If the kitchen disgusts me and I feel like I have to put a new kitchen in, a new carpet and paint, that house is worth less to me. So value changes by buyer too.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's see, we talked about so we're on the topic of waiving contingencies, and Tony's broker's head is going to blow off his head when I say this. However, do you have to have an inspection? Obviously, we encourage people to have inspections. Never tell a buyer, don't have an inspection. But if you are so confident, maybe in a newer home or some scenario, waiving inspections could be a possibility. Get it in writing. Don't necessarily encourage people to do it. But I have had buyers buy houses without inspections. I usually object. I say, are you sure it's only $350? But if your buyer is looking for a way to get a leg up, it's a possibility. I'm going to let you talk for a second, Tony, because I'm sure you're going to want to add on to what I just said there, because it's kind of controversial.
Definitely. No, I mean, that's definitely a possibility. I would say, that's kind of the last thing, a possibility, but this is what I suggest to do to get yourself, say there's 5 offers and they all have inspections, to have a conversation with the listing agent going, listen, everybody else is probably writing 7 to 10 days. I already have this buyer talking to inspectors now. They'll be out within 5 days. We're not going to wait 3 days to let you know. We're going to let you know in 24 hours. So we're going to let you do the inspection faster. We have an inspector ready to go, and I'll let you know within 24 hours if we're going to continue on with the contract or not. So cut the time.
Shorten the inspection time, shorten the response time. Those are fabulous ideas. Also, what about if you get an offer, if 2 offers are equal and one only wants a general inspection and the other one wants general, mold, pest, radon, everything, that could make a difference too. There feels like there's more pitfalls in the second offer. So again, I would never tell someone don't have that inspection, but you may ask your buyer which inspections they want to have. Are you looking for ways to strengthen your offer? Just some ideas.
Exactly. And then, of course, always, and I'm probably jumping the gun a little bit here, have that conversation with the listing agent of what make sure they know exactly what's going on with your offer before they read it. Because if they see price and they think, price is not as where we want it to be, there's someone a little bit higher, but then they have to read it along with their sellers, because sometimes listing agents don't read the offer completely until they sit in front of the
Yeah.
sellers. So you go, hey, this is our price, but we're lowering we're doing the inspection faster. All we're asking is a general home inspection. So, sell them on your offer before they have to read it. So while they're explaining that in the contract to their seller, they have that in mind.
So that's a great segue into one of my final points, which is whenever possible, find out what's important to the seller. So it may be that price is important to every seller, but maybe there are other factors that are equally important, or maybe even more important. Maybe the seller isn't looking for every last dime, but instead they're looking for someone who will rent back to them for a month. Maybe they're looking for someone who will delay closing for 75 days. Instead of closing in 45 days, gosh, if they would give us 75 days, maybe that would have some value to me as a seller.
Right. And that's why you have to have that conversation. You got to have that conversation with the listing agent before you write the offer. You don't want to find out afterwards. You wrote a 30-day close because your buyer can't wait to go in there, but they're first-time home buyers are living at home with their parents. They really could stay, they're not costing it, could wait 60 days if needed, but you didn't have that conversation with the listing agent to know that's important. All of a sudden, someone else wrote an offer for 60 days, and they just assumed took that one and didn't even give you the option. They go, wow, we could have done that too.
Exactly. I love it. Thank you for that, Tony. The other idea that we have seen and talked about is a personal letter. Sometimes you have sellers that maybe this is their family home, 30 years. They raised their family there, and whatever your advantage is, try to put that into a letter. So what if I wrote a letter that said, we're a young family just getting ready to have our first baby, and we could see raising our kids in your home, Tony, swinging our kids on the tire swing you have in back, playing in the sandbox that you have in your back, whatever it may be. Try appealing on an emotional level. Now, I'm an investor. I invest in property. So when I see that, I say, oh, cute letter, where's the price? But there's going to be some segment of the seller population that looks at that and says, man, all things being equal, or if this offer is just a little lower, I like the idea of a young family, just like we were when we bought this house, buying this house. Why not try it, right?
Right, exactly. So it's up to your buyers and how comfort level they want them to know about them.
Yep.
That it's their, we can't force that on people, but we say, would you like to, this is my suggestion to talk about yourself, and that might help put us over the offer. But ultimately, that's your client's choice.
Yes. And again, I want to reiterate, I've said it like 5 times. I'm not saying go out and do any of these things. I'm just saying you need to at least know about them, so that if it comes up and your buyer's getting beaten out of houses, you at least know that these are options. These are things that other people are out there doing. And if you're not at least aware of them, you could be losing clients because of it. Gosh, my agent never told me I could write a letter. I didn't even know that was a possibility. I would have done that in a heartbeat. You don't want to be there.
Right. I've been using that, not the similar situation, but on the seller side. I've seen so many houses, and this is, I don't know, not controversial, but, we could debate this, but selling a house to me in a day is why. If you have someone coming in and buying an offer today at asking price, and the first person that sees it, there's other ones showing why. And agents have been asking me, how I want a seller that wants to sign the dotted line now, but I'm trying to get them to wait, and they don't understand. They just got their number and they want it. I said, maybe use that same thing. So imagine when you're a family, you're busy tonight, you don't have time, your kids got practice, you got a family event, you can't see a house tonight, you can see it tomorrow, but you really want to be in that neighborhood, but the seller sold their house in one day. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, how would you feel? I don't think it's fair. We should keep it on the market a couple of days to make it fair for everybody out there to see it. Not just the first person that was fast enough that came in and wrote the offer. Let's give everybody time and to see it. So that's kind of the same way with the letter. Use that with the seller. There could be someone out there that really wants this house just as much or more than you did when you bought it. Let's see all offers. Let's give everybody the opportunity to see it.
And ultimately, it's our job to let our clients know that we have options. A seller may say, gosh, I didn't know I could wait. I got a
Right.
full price offer on day one. You never told me I could wait until tomorrow to respond. And they might be
Right.
mad at you for that. So knowing all the options, that's really what these conversations are about. I've got one more option, and I'll preface this by saying I'm personally not a fan of using these with buyers. But my coach said to me, yeah, but Mike, again, if you don't let your buyers know this is an option, you might be missing the boat. And that is escalation clauses. And I'm actually going to type escalation clause in the chat box here. You should check with your companies and see if they have an escalation clause that you can use. Briefly, I'll explain what it is. Essentially, an escalation clause is when I know there's multiple offers and a house is listed for $200,000, but my buyer feels like they would be willing to pay more than that. And they don't want to pay more than they have to. So they might say something like this on the escalation clause. We will pay you $200,000 for your house, or we will beat your best offer by $500, $1,000, up to a certain amount. So, but we'll beat your best offer by $1,000 up to $220,000. So if you get an offer of $205, show it to us, we'll pay $206. If you get an offer of $215, show it to us, we'll pay $216. But if you get an offer of $221, we set our cap as $220. Again, I feel like that is revealing the hand of the buyer. And if I'm a seller and I know you're willing to go to $220, I could just counter you and say, well, I see you're willing to go to $220. If you give me that, I'll take your offer now. But again, at least letting the buyers know the pluses and minuses of using an escalation clause. You know what, if it works and they get the house for $206, then you're the hero. So I don't know, Tony, what are you seeing on escalation clauses, and what are your thoughts?
Exactly. This is my opinion. My opinion on that is very similar. They were getting pretty popular for a while, but they're kind of dying off a little bit now because exactly that. When it's our listing, and I say someone says I'll go up to, they just showed you their hand. You could, as a seller, not entertain the escalation clause, just like an addendum. Like say, I want you to paint the house purple. You go, I'm not painting the house purple. Not entertaining that. I'm counting you at what you told me your highest price is.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we do on our listings, and exactly what you said.
Yeah. Again, these are just ideas. There's pluses and minuses to everything, but having the knowledge of the tools that are out there will make your clients feel more confident in you. And basically we do what they want us to. You know, if a seller says, no, Tony, I want to accept that offer on day one, you say, okay, here's why you might not want to do that. But if they say, no, I want it, then you do it. If your buyer says, I want to write a letter, you explain to them the pluses and minuses, you let them do it. They want to put up more earnest money. If they want to talk about contingencies in a different way, shorten inspection times, we do what they direct us to ultimately, but we should have knowledge of all those options.
Yeah, and I'm just going to throw in, because of selling so many thousands and thousands of homes, we come across scenarios, and this has happened 2 or 3 times where we've sold houses asking price or even a little bit more, and then months later, all of a sudden, the neighbor calls their old neighbor, the seller, and says, hey, my cousin wanted to buy your house. He would have paid even more. And then they call and get upset that think we're not looking out for their best interest. So I've actually had agents suggest to sellers and write in there that I've explained that you might be able to get more money if we got multiple offers or whatever scenario, because that happens sometimes. I mean, it takes, it's very, very, very small percentage of time, but someone could come up and say, oh, wow, I didn't even know your house was for sale. I want to live in that market. But yeah, you put it on the market, it's sold in a day or two, and, that kind of thing can happen. So for listing agents out there selling at asking price on the first day, it's things that could happen like that.
Right. Well, we're at time, so I want to wrap up by saying this Saturday here at the office, I believe it's 12:30, we have a core ethics class. It's either 12 or 12:30. You can go to homestarclasses.com. I'm teaching core ethics. That's one of the 3 classes all you agents need. And then next week, our topic is negotiation basics and then different styles. So we'll get more in depth on how to negotiate, what different types of negotiating styles there are out there, and how to deal with it. So hopefully that'll be a great class for everyone, and see you here Tuesday next week, 11:30 to 12.
Great.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Tony.
Mike. Thanks, everybody. See you
Bye.
next week.